playing this for some question and answer for anyone who may have that. So because we only have an hour, and I could probably talk for a long, long time, don't want to do that, I'm going to hand this particular 3 for 3 pop up there on foster youth initiatives in the state to Laura Obrist. Thank you, Laura, for joining us today.
Thank you, Dr. Barlow. Just making sure folks can hear me. Okay, great. So I'm Laura Obrist, and as Dr. Barlow said, I am the Foster Youth Ambassador for the Nevada System of Higher Education, or NSHE, as we call it. And I work in the Chancellor's office, and I facilitate the statewide initiative that focuses on supporting our students who've experienced foster care at all 7 of our degree granting institutions across the state. So my role was created in July of 2019, and overall, I have spent the last decade of my career specifically focused on college support for students who've experienced foster care and or homelessness. I began that work in California, where formalized support for this student population has been established for many years. And I am personally invested in this work because of my own lack of familial support as a child and narrowly avoiding foster care myself, and the positive impact that my education has made on my life. I really feel that this work is vital because the vast majority of students who've experienced foster care really want to go to college, and we know that from actual data. But many of them experience education opportunity gaps just based on foster care history. And a lot of their setbacks, well, really, all their setbacks have nothing to do with their ability to succeed in college, and definitely not their desire, but really just the pervasive lack of financial and or wraparound support. And those obstacles can make it challenging to thrive and persist in college, regardless of ability or desire. And so in September of 2018, NSHE launched the system-wide initiative really with the Nevada Board of Regents unanimously approving the foster youth fee waiver. That waives certain course registration fees for students who were dependents of the Nevada child welfare system, specifically at or after age 14. And we were the 29th state to implement a program like that. As of 2021, which is the most recent update we have, there are now 35 states that have some sort of college financial assistance program that is state funded for students specifically in this population. So our primary mission is really to recruit and retain and support students that have experienced foster care, and the fee waiver is definitely important with that. But our initiative serves any student with experience in foster care, regardless of when or where they were in foster care, or their eligibility for the fee waiver or other forms of financial aid. That does vary a lot between students. So as a result of the fee waiver approval and establishment of the initiative, NSHE applied for and received $600,000 in private grant funding from the Walter S. Johnson Foundation to assist with creating my role, with producing system-wide materials and resources on financial aid and wraparound support for these students, and other initiative needs, such as trainings for NSHE employees and community partners on how to best support the college aspirations of our young people with experience in foster care. So the foundation has also awarded 2 grants to Truckee Meadows Community College, 1 grant to UNLV, and 1 grant to the University of Nevada, Reno, to strengthen their formalized campus-based support for these students. And really, in collaboration with our coordinated NSHE employee and community partner network that serve these students, my role is dedicated to achieving our mission kind of through a 3-pronged approach. So the first area is really increasing financial aid access and utilization for our students that have experienced foster care, particularly in the form of the fee waiver, state and federal grants, federal work study, scholarships, and or education vouchers that are specialized for this population on the federal level. The second thing is kind of improving and expanding post-secondary education specific wraparound support for these students. So my primary focus on that is with our institutions and just helping them implement processes and design and coordinate programming on campus that will help this student population with enrollment and success. And my secondary focus is on supporting the community partners in gaining an understanding of college processes, procedures, resources, particularly financial aid and the campus-based support services, including foster care specific information, and then broader information that we know promotes student success. And then the last kind of area is leading and supporting state and federal policy advocacy efforts that serve the educational best interests of Nevada students who have experienced foster care. So kind of building on the fee waiver resource, our community really working together as a team has made a lot of notable strides in the last few years on building a stronger and more comprehensive support system for our students that want to go to college. There's kind of 4 key bucket areas that our work falls into. So the first one is building a statewide learning community that collaborates and is committed to learning about the population in order to better serve them and what their expressed needs actually are. The second area is focused on student voice and leadership, which is particularly important for this population because these students have spent their lives in situations and systems that have given them very little autonomy, and very often decisions were made that were not in their best interests or not what they wanted. And therefore, we know that the student support programming really only works if it's student-led and or at least student-informed. And so this is really a very important component of the work. And the student who currently holds a part-time role in my office will speak more on this shortly, so I'll leave it at that. The third area is centered around system level outreach and resource development and provision. And the fourth area is building capacity at our 7 degree granting institutions, which is obviously really crucial. And along those lines, this is the last thing I'll highlight. We chose UNLV as the first school to launch a campus-based support program for our students who've experienced foster care. And I was so thrilled when we hired Heather Richardson to serve as the coordinator in June 2021. She has a wealth of experience with serving students in foster care, with young people in foster care, students or otherwise. She's really dedicated to the mission, and she's really hit the ground running to ensure that our current and prospective students at UNLV that are in this population have the support that they need to thrive. And most notably with the launch of the program last fall. And so I will let Heather speak more on that piece when she goes, but for now, I will pass it off to Jessie.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessie Fager-Larson, and I am the peer and community educator for the Nevada System of Higher Education, or NSHE. I'm the Foster Youth Success Initiative for the 2021-2022 academic year. I am also a UNLV student majoring in psychology with a double minor in political science and business management. My role is a part-time student worker position within the Chancellor's office. And like Laura said, I also work with all 7 colleges and universities throughout the state of Nevada. I obtained this role in the summer of 2021 and have worked on a numerous amount of projects to support our students who have experienced foster care. I focus really mainly on projects that provide information and resources for our students, as well as helping to educate NSHE employees and community partners about the needs of our students who have spent time in the child welfare system. In this role, I serve as a statewide liaison to help ensure that the initiative work is student-led and informed. I create resources based on needs students have expressed through surveys and even one-on-one conversations with me, educators, or even providers. This includes resource guides and webinars that covers topics such as financial literacy pieces, mental wellness, and really how to get involved on campus or in the community. I sometimes connect with students on one-on-ones to see how they are doing and what they feel is needed on their campus to help them support them in their college overall goals. This role is important because it really ensures that the perspectives of the students we serve are consistently driving this initiative work. Having an NSHE student who has been in the child welfare system serve in this role is very critical because that student has been through a similar experience, which makes it very important. This speaks volumes. It makes it really easier to interact and help students feel heard. I have had students tell me that they feel more comfortable talking to me or other students with similar experiences than to older adult educators or providers. But I've also had the opposite, where students tell me that they'd rather talk to the support people than to a fellow student. So it really just depends on the student's needs at that time. Now, I really wanted to share a little bit about the projects that I'm working on with you all. The first project I really ever did was I facilitated a portion of the 3rd annual system-wide initiative retreat that we had in November 2021. We talked about the importance of working toward using a more person-centered language for the student population. Now, there is this growing national trend to refrain from labeling young people as foster youth because that experience does not define them. Instead, we discuss using phrases such as students who have experienced foster care, which is really important. And you even see this reflected in how our office has encouraged schools that are starting campus-based supports programs, to name them, beginning with the word fostering, such as the UNLV Fostering Scholars Program. The word fostering has a positive meaning and is still a clue for students who have been in the foster care system that it's a program for them. But it also avoids the label of foster youth that many students feel places too much emphasis on their experience in the system and results in labels and judgment. We also talked about how the different demographic groups of students are either disproportionately represented or in the child welfare system more negatively impacted within that system, or both. They often face extra hardships when reaching adulthood. This includes young people of color, young people who are undocumented, and even those who are part of the LGBTQ+ community. This was a truly amazing experience for me because I was really able to work with students throughout the NSHE system and incorporate their ideas into my presentation when presenting. Now, another project that I am currently working on is a webinar about getting involved on your campus and in your community. Now, this is really important to me, and I'm really passionate about this because I am heavily involved in a lot of extracurriculars. I would even say too many. And I've had friends who struggled to find extracurriculars when starting college. And some of those friends weren't even in the system and have more support with figuring that stuff out. So when I heard that, I thought that making this webinar was really important, and it's informed by research and my own experience. And this is very beneficial for NSHE students who have experienced foster care. Another project that I'm working on is I'm working on this project with a national expert in college support for students with experience in foster care. And Laura and I collaborate with this person, and we're working on a training curriculum focused on promoting positive development for young people emerging from the foster care. We will actually be facilitating this in May, and the focus is on adolescent brain development and working to understand the impact that trauma has on those who have experienced foster care. Also to show how educators and providers can support young people with healing without labeling them, working to understand growth opportunities for young people emerging to adulthood, and working to build that authentic relationship built on trust and respect with young people. Another project that I've also been working on, which started with the UNR student who served in my role last year and will continue with the next student because it's so important and vital, is launching fostering community clubs at the schools that have larger numbers of students who have experienced foster care. Now, this unified name and model really allows each school to have its own club chapter, while also providing the opportunity for each campus chapter to collaborate with the clubs at other schools across the state. Now, this is really important because the student population is so small, and community building is vital for students with similar experiences. Some schools have so few students that unfortunately they haven't been able to start their own formal club on their campus. But those students are still able to engage with statewide activities and the other clubs that my role and the other schools are collaborating on. We currently have 2 officially launched clubs, which is awesome, at UNLV and UNR. And I'm talking to schools like Truckee Meadows Community College and the College of Southern Nevada about working towards launching clubs at those schools as well. Now, these clubs have been requested by and are super important to many students throughout the state because they offer a student-led opportunity to connect with other students who have similar experiences. And this is without having to share their life story with students who cannot relate to them. The club also offers a way for college students who spent time in foster care to give back to their own community through various projects. And lastly, the last project that I really wanted to talk about is the new quarterly initiative newsletter that we're launching this year. So I helped Laura come up with the various sections we plan to include, and I even wrote some of the content. And the students who serve in the role after me will also have the opportunity to do so as well. And then just overall, this role is very important to me. I know that I have had difficulties in the child welfare system, and I know that I want to make transitioning to college as easy as possible for others who are starting after me, which is very important. But other than that, that's it. And I will pass it over to Heather, Jacob, and Alan.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Heather Richardson, and I am the program coordinator with Fostering Scholars. And I am, first of all, I'm going to share my screen with you, so you don't have to look at my face the whole time. So give me just a second. All right. So I started back, like Laura said, I started back with UNLV just way back in June. So 9 months ago, I started with Fostering Scholars. And so that is my contact information. My office is housed on UNLV's Student Union on the 3rd floor. And I love this work, and I'm incredibly passionate about the work that I do. I come to this work as the program coordinator, launching this program as the first campus-based program supporting students who've experienced foster care. And when I saw the job posting for this job, I literally tell everybody, I knew immediately that this position was like written for me. I had worked for the Department of Family Services here in Clark County for 16 years at that time, working as a caseworker and a supervisor, supporting families in foster care. So I supported youth who had been in the foster care system at all ages for the past 16 years. And after doing that work, I had done that. I had also facilitated a grant that specifically looked at transition aged youth, which is young people who age out of foster care and what happens when youth age out of foster care. And after having that experience, when I found this position, I knew immediately it was for me, because in addition to that 16 years of experience I also am a former foster care alum. I'm a foster care alumni myself. I'm also a UNLV 2-time alumni. So I graduated from UNLV with both my undergraduate degree and my master's degree. And I'll share with you that there were times during my undergrad degree that I lived out of my car. And there was a time that I had to withdraw from UNLV because of the struggles that I had that was different than other students. My peers didn't have the same struggles that I did. And so when I saw that this program was starting and I interviewed for it, I just knew that I wanted to be part of it. So much so, and I tell people this just because I really want people to know where my passion's at, that I literally cut my paycheck in half to come take this position. And because that's how much I care about students who have experienced foster care. I believe in the work that Laura and I are doing to help students. And so I'll let you stop looking at that very airbrushed picture of me. And so why is this work important? So here's kind of a picture, if you will, of how kids usually learn. And so kids usually learn you think of a young child, and the easiest picture I can paint is, a young child cries, parents react. Children build trust in adults in a very specific way by predictability. For young people who have entered into a foster care system, things have been different for them. They've resided in a home where things are less predictable. So, and then they've entered a system where now they have a different experience than their same age peers. So when young people are learning to cope with, they learn to cope with their feelings and are getting into college, they know who to go to. They have mom and dad. That wasn't my experience. And so when you look at young people who have experienced foster care, here is what I was talking about. The path has some gaps in it. So those educational and opportunities gaps. So let's take, for example, a driver's license. Oftentimes, somebody doesn't get the opportunity to learn how to drive. So that was the experience that I saw as I worked for family services. Foster parents and caregivers would not place a young person on their insurance. They would not teach them the skills of learning how to drive. They didn't have the opportunity to open a bank account and learn fiscal responsibility or how to manage a bank account. Also, one thing that I experienced with working at family services, when I was doing the youth at risk of homelessness grant, I did a heavy amount of research during that period. And what that research showed was that young people that age out of the foster care system in Clark County specifically, those that age out here in our county experience 7 placement changes. So 7 times that young person was changed from their environment. So that's 7 different times they've had to adapt to a different set of caregivers with 7 different sets of rules, perhaps 7 different educational settings. And so things it's just a different experience for young people. So now a young person has a desire to go to college. Data shows us 60 to 70% of young people with foster care experience want to come to UNLV. So what do we do? How do we help? So you saw those gaps in the road. We want to build bridges. So we can do that by the positive way that we build these bridges are through social connections and through helping a young person be able to have a way to financially sustain themselves. So the NSHE statewide initiative launched back a few years ago, like Laura said, and I'm so grateful to have her as a colleague. She's a passionate advocate for this work, and she's great at what she does. So there's a plethora of things that we do here at UNLV Fostering Scholars. It is not a cookie cutter by any means. Students get to opt in to our program, and every student situation is different. So one of the roles that I do is that I'm the fee waiver contact for that fee waiver the Board of Regents approves. But in addition to that, we have some students that aren't eligible for that. So we look at their specific situation and help them navigate those financial aid experiences to find out what they're eligible for. Additionally, we send out emails to students on our list about specific foster care scholarships that are eligible for that population. Some students are adopted because everybody has different journeys. And so there are some scholarships that are for adopted youth. So no matter what that young person's experience or student's experience is, our goal is to build the bridge. So through our program, by the time they leave UNLV, they are on the same page with their same aged peers. We want to have them build connections to social, through our 7 life domains and coaching. We want them to build a social network through peers, mentors. We help if they have an emergency financial situation. Say you have to worry about the power is about to get shut off. You certainly can't focus on school if you're worried about the power being shut off. So that's somewhere where we get involved, and a student can contact me. Essentially, it's a hub and spokes sort of program where the coach is at the center of it, and we create this community, which our role with working with the intersection with Dr. Barlow, making referrals through them. We work with financial aid, admissions, and all the different key areas throughout the campus community, but we also work with several community partners to ensure students are served. But a big component of what we do is working one-on-one with students. Like I said, this isn't cookie cutter, and everybody's journey is different. So I want to turn it over to, and I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn it over to Jacob first and then Alan, because I have 2 fabulous MSW practicum students that are the backbone and lifeline of our program that work with our students in the role of campus success coaches. So I'll turn it over to Jacob first, and then you can shoot it over to Alan.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Heather. Yeah, we recently just completed a fostering success coaching training. So we do assessments with students that focus on the 7 life domains. And those 7 life domains would be like finances and employment, housing, education, physical and mental health, supportive relationships, community connections, cultural and personal identity, and life skills, all surrounding education, because we want to make sure that their journey in higher education is successful. And I want to give it some experiences, some particular experiences that I've had doing these assessments, having gone through coaching with my students. One of the experiences I had was working with a student who had a lot of trouble in an English class, and she didn't understand what the English professor was trying to say. The English professor I was very triggered in the beginning, because the English professor was not being very kind, was calling her work incoherent, was using kind of demeaning language. And after getting a full assessment done with the student, I recognized that the student's strengths was being a multilingual student, and a student had grown up in a non-English speaking household, So this student actually didn't understand how we could work with that professor, and how it might have been beneficial for her to be in a different English class. But we were able to advocate on her behalf and work with that professor to get her a really good grade in that class, and to coach her through writing papers. Another student I'd recently had, were having some trouble working with their health insurance and getting that sorted out with the company, and I'm having them write letters. And being learner centered, I recognize that this has been an issue because we haven't gotten mail back. So it was like, okay, like, how many times have you sent a letter? Like how, and they haven't sent a letter before. They didn't feel comfortable saying that yet. They didn't feel comfortable showing that. So me and him, we actually were able to go down. I modeled, buying a stamp. I showed him how to address a letter, how to put the stamp on the letter. Like, no one has ever shown him this before. So we were able to like get that, and he was able to hand the letter to the person to put it in the mailbox for him, and he was the one that bought the stamp, and he was the one that wrote the address in the letter. And that was like a huge thing, working with students to like read syllabuses, working with students to figure out like, hey, like if you have your phone and you're on it all the time, let's use Google Calendar. Let's just import all your assignments into Google Calendar. Let's just like, we have this great, one of the things we learned in fostering success coaching was an application called Syllabuddy, where you can just upload your syllabus and it will actually extract all the due dates, and we can import them into your Google Calendar. And since I did that, he hasn't missed an assignment. So all these amazing tools, because each student has different exposure gaps, and doing a full assessment with each student allows us to identify even just small things that would prevent somebody from being successful in higher education. So I'll pass it on to Alan.
Thanks, Jacob. Very well said. Like Jacob said, my name is Alan. My situation is a little bit different. Like Jacob, I am a MSW practicum student. I'm actually working on my second master's degree. I am a UNLV employee myself. I work in a different department across campus, and my background is not only in student counseling, but also student academic advising. So that's kind of why Heather brought me on, so I could complete my practicum training with her this year, is because I can help our fostering scholars students with their academic degree plans and kind of give them a path and kind of show them, once you set foot on campus, here is your path to graduation. If your goal is to walk across that stage at the Thomas and Mack with your undergraduate degree, our department can help you reach that goal. Every student at UNLV has an academic advisor in their college. And, I always want that student to reach out to the academic advisor. But in some situations, it may take days, weeks, maybe a month to get that advising appointment. And that can be a little frustrating. So that's kind of where I can come in, is I can, look at their academic situation and kind of shed some light on the positive and the negatives and see what they can do. I have access in the system to kind of make things happen. So Heather might work with the student and realize that this student may need help, with something. And instead of having to wait on hold or call another number to get that answer, she can just loop me in, and I can use my expertise as a UNLV employee, to help that student to the best of my ability. So Jacob and I kind of work hand in hand in that capacity.
All right, great. Thank you guys for sharing your experiences as campus coaches. So at this time, I want to turn it over to one of our fostering scholars, Miss Tony.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to finally put faces with names. So for many young people starting college, it's scary, but it's also very exciting. Some people look back at college and they remember parties and living in dorm, getting a million calls, going back home on the break, the dorm down, and the holidays with family. But for former foster youth like me, we have different experiences. So I graduated from high school a year early because I hated it at 17 and immediately started at UNLV. At 17, I'm still in foster care. And like Heather said, not a lot of foster parents are willing to sign for you to get a driver's license. But they also didn't want to drive me all the way across town to UNLV. So just to get to class, I would have to take maybe a 2 to 3 hour bus ride one way just to get to school. And then there weren't any after school activities because I had curfew still. And with the bus being unreliable, I had to make sure that I could catch that 3 hour bus ride back to North Las Vegas from UNLV. On top of going to school and not being able to drive, I also had to part-time because I couldn't do full-time. So that by the time I turned 18, I had somewhere to go and I had like furniture because all they gave us back then was a mattress. And so it kind of would suck to move into somewhere and only have a mattress there. So I was saving up, buying the necessities. I got a storage unit to put all the stuff in. And I made it work, but not everybody that I aged out with is that headstrong. So I know a lot of former foster youth that struggled with that transition. Like I said, there's no visiting home on break, so I needed somewhere to live. I had no real guidance and I struggled for a while. It was mostly financially and maybe mentally. My grades were horrible because I couldn't focus on school while also having to become an adult, having bills and doctors and trying to focus on eating right, saving money, also studying, legal problems. My roommates were former foster youth, and that led to a world of problems because none of us had guidance. So it was just too much at once. Like somebody else was saying that some of the professors are understanding and then some aren't. So for any professors that are joined in or staff, it's very important to be kind because you never know what the next person's going through. And while you're already going through one of the extremely difficult times in life, it can be very discouraging having somebody that's an authority figure belittle you or just be very cold while you're giving it your all. Some of us are getting maybe hours of sleep just so you can work, get transportation, and study. Sometimes our all isn't maybe enough grade-wise, but we are trying. And to other fellow foster youth that are joined in, we got this. There's so many more resources now than there were even a few years ago when I was 17 starting college. The Fostering Scholars Program has made my transition back to UNLV so smooth. Whenever I came back, I had so many issues between my transferring GPA not being the same as my original UNLV GPA. So I almost thought that I was going to have to drop out this semester, but being that they have so many different connections everywhere, they were able to get me all the different scholarships I needed to be able to go to school. They were able to pay my bills. They gave me free textbooks, diapers for my kids, all kinds of additional aid. And I know a lot of us view like getting the help specifically for foster youth as like, oh, I don't need it, but they're not like caseworkers. They're people that have been through the same thing that we're going through and are still going through it and working on themselves, going to school still. So they make it easier for us to relate to them because they know how we feel. And even if it takes a little bit longer for us, as long as we put forth the work and effort, we will all cross our finish line. Yeah. That's all I had to say.
Yay, thank you so much, Tony. That was amazing. Jessie, you were gonna share your experience, right, as a student? Jesse's changing, is that?
Oh, yes, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. So yes, hi again. I am back to share my perspective as a UNLV student who has been in foster care. So like I basically stated before, I'm a psychology major with a double minor in political science and business management. And school is a huge priority for me. It's very important to me. And like I mentioned before, students like me who have experienced foster care often need a little extra support with navigating the college environment. It was super interesting to hear what Tony had to say because each person experiences things differently. Like I mentioned in the comment section, I never experienced what she went through, but I've experienced something different. So that's very important to know. But when it comes to school, I am pretty self-sufficient myself. But it's also nice to have people I can lean on if I have questions or need support. In fall 2021, UNLV launched the Fostering Scholars Program, which I briefly mentioned earlier, and Heather, Alan, and Jacob obviously already spoke about it more in depth along with Tony. But I just wanted to share that I think that the program is so amazing. It really is there for students at UNLV to drop in or email the staff for assistance, whether it be strictly school related, housing needs, food assistance, or really anything that a student may need help with in order to continue succeeding in college. I myself have asked Fostering Scholars Program in the last couple months for some rental assistance and even some food assistance because I do live on my own and there are times where everyone has those hard times. But this program is really amazing at helping students out with the assistance that they may need. The services are also tailored to each student's particular needs. And there's no requirement for when you have to go in. You can go in every week if you want, or if you're busy, you can go in whenever you need that support or whenever you need something specific. Overall, my experience as a UNLV student has been really amazing because of all the resources and campus-based support system that I have and the campus-based support that Fostering Scholars provides. It does wonders. It really does. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about fostering community again. Regarding the Fostering Community Club I mentioned earlier, I actually serve as a civic engagement officer for the club at UNLV. This position really does go hand in hand with my statewide role for the initiative because I'm in charge of finding projects or events for students in the club to complete or attend. Like for instance, we're talking about bringing inspirational guest speakers who have also experienced foster care to future meetings. And I'm also interested in doing presentations and or even campus tours for high schoolers in foster care in Clark County. This is just a great way for us to give back to our own community, for them to be able to have that successful college experience. And it also really good at building our own resumes and being able to support others that have had the same experience as us. Overall, I'm super grateful for Fostering Scholars, for Fostering Community Club, and for Laura. But yeah, other than that, that's my little spiel. Thank you.
Awesome, Jessie. Thank you. So I will go ahead and let everybody know we are now going to enter our question and answer portion of the program. I do say that to let you know that you're welcome to ask questions of the students and staff who presented today. We just ask that you focus on asking questions related to what folks feel is most helpful or important in serving the student population, as opposed to asking personal questions about their backgrounds or their foster care histories. To the students and staff answering questions, please remember that this, albeit virtual, is a safe space. So please take care to share only that information that you are comfortable with. So with that said, you can raise your hand if you would. That would probably be the most useful.
So I have a question. I think I raised my hand. I'm not sure. Yeah.
That's okay, Dr. Barlow. You get endless questions.
I do. I
raised it.
have a lot of questions, but before I even get into that, I just want to thank each of you for an amazing discussion. I have learned so much, and I'm on the advisory board, right? But I have learned so much from you all today. And Jessie and Tony, your stories are inspiring, and I just want to really thank you for sharing them. Yeah, my heart is pretty full just listening, and but very, very grateful to know that UNLV and NSHE has, been on the forefront with developing this program and the passion in which it has been developed. So thank you very, very, very much for all that you do. But I got a whole bunch of questions, right? But one of the things that I really wanted to ask, you mentioned, somebody mentioned about undocumented students who have experienced foster care. And thank you for giving us the correct terminology. I really appreciate that. As some of you all may know, we recently, Nayeli Rico joined the intersection staff as the undocumented student program coordinator here. And we are always very cognizant of, so many of the programs or activities or resources that students who are undocumented are not able to access because of their status. But I think, Jessie, it may have been you who said something about undocumented students. So I wanted to know a little bit more about how can undocumented students access some of the programs and services that may be offered through the Fostering Scholars Program and or NSHE.
So I'll jump in real quick just to say that fostering scholars can provide holistic supports to that student regardless of their documentation status. So we will provide that student supports as a program participant regardless. Second, I'll add before I turn it over to our NSHE folks that probably have much more information about this. Second, I'll add, I just actually came from a meeting this morning on our statewide independent living board that discussed about potential opportunities to assist financially our undocumented aging out students that with funds that are with federal funding for that purpose specifically. It wouldn't be ongoing, but Nevada has a certain amount of money that we need to spend. And so they're discussing the potential about being able to allocate that to our undocumented youth that are in care now that would like to attend school. So more to come is what I will add to the conversation. But Laura and Jessie probably know more about that.
I would say that from what I know, unfortunately, I don't think there are a lot of support for students that are undocumented in the system, but I know Laura knows a lot more than I do about that. So she can take it over.
Thanks, Jessie. Yeah, so it's complicated as it is with all of our students because regardless of the different kind of demographic variables, all of our students have varying eligibility for different resources depending on when and where they were in care. And so, part of my role is keeping an eye on what's available kind of nationally, federally, and what's available locally, and the different combination of factors, and gathering information to the extent the student is comfortable that helps us, connect them with what they're eligible for. So, the Chafee Education and Training Voucher that is was implemented on the federal level for the student population and is administered differently in each state is currently in our state tied to federal financial aid eligibility, and it really is overall, but there's a loophole in some states where they're able to use state specific funding to supplement and add more. And so I won't get fully into that because it's a little complicated, but in Nevada, our undocumented students in care can't access that funding. And they actually can't currently access the fee waiver, which is a conversation we've been having from the beginning, because the way that was written is tied to federal financial aid eligibility. And, you know, I don't want to speak for what may happen in the future, but a lot of us are definitely advocating around that. And there's larger conversations within the system about supporting the undocumented students overall. And I think as those conversations move and things potentially shift, that will, you know, provide us with a better opportunity to advocate for this specific fee waiver as well. So definitely trying to make sure that those students know, you know, what scholarships they can get and things like that, that are either specific to undocumented students or just will allow them to be included. There are some funding sources that we have in our state that don't apply to UNLV or UNR, but it can be used, you know, like the Nevada Promise Scholarship at our community colleges, and you know, and Nevada State College has a lot of support for that student population. So each institution is also different. And then, you know, really we're always searching for scholarships nationally and locally that those students can be included in. And really one of the keys is if it's contingent on federal financial aid eligibility or having to complete the FAFSA, which is of course tied to that. So I'm sure that does not fully answer the question, but I guess without going into too much detail on specific things, that's kind of the broad strokes, but feel free to ask a follow-up.
Well, and the nice thing about us serving that population, like we get referrals of young people at whether it's that student lets me know that they're here at UNLV or they're referred while they're still in high school, Dr. Barlow. We can work with that student about their individual situation. So I have students that aren't eligible for the fee waiver that are out-of-state students, and we work with whatever their situation is. So then I know that student is a DACA student. And so then I'm working with that student. I'm referring that student to whatever programs that I can, that I know to keep an eye out for any DACA scholarships, and we go through that.
Sure.
And we're linking them with
Sure.
any of those. So
that's very good to know. I mean, you know, you know about our work here, and we do very much the same. And so I'm sure that Nayeli knew that. I just did not know that, as I'm learning more and more about you know, this population and what is available. So it's good for us to know that undocumented students can also, if they have experienced, you know, foster care, that they can use this Fostering Scholars as a resource. So thank you very much.
what other questions do we have? Oh, yes, Miss, is it Deliza? I don't want to say it wrong.
No worries, you actually got it right. It's Lisa.
Okay.
Thank you so much for putting this together and doing such meaningful work in the community. I work for Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. So if there's anything that, you know, I can do or learn, and because you are all the experts here, happy to, you know, relay anything to the senator. But my question is, I believe Jessie had mentioned a newsletter that was being released quarterly. Is there a way that the community could get onto this list, or some way that I could participate and get those?
Yeah, there's actually, I think, an email or a link to be able to put your email in so you can get the quarterly newsletter updates. I think Laura has access to that, and she could probably like put it in the chat or like email you separately, or however she wants to do it. But
It
yeah,
was gonna
Yeah, I'll
ask
put that
you-
in the chat.
Yep, perfect.
awesome.
And could we get your, or could you, either you can private message me, or if you can send your email address, that would be amazing. That way, if Laura and I, as we're doing our work, perfect. And if we need anything or come upon anything, it would be great if we need to reach out to you. That would be very helpful. Did you have any other questions?
No, I didn't. I just don't know how to take the raise function.
Oh, that's okay.
Thank you. But wonderful to work with you all.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Barlow, did you say that you had other questions?
Your mic.
Laura just dropped the link to the newsletter also, by the way, to subscribe.
Yes. So anybody here that would like to subscribe to the NSHE newsletter, go ahead and click that link. UNLV will be coming online with its own Fostering Scholar newsletter within the next couple of months. Once we get through the semester, that's more of a summertime time frame. So I'll be working with Laura to coordinate about that. Dr. Barlow?
Well, yeah, I have 1,000 different questions, but unfortunately we are running out of time.
I just realized.
But I know where you are, and I know how to get in contact with Laura for other questions that I might have. I just want to take this opportunity on behalf of the intersection and everyone who is listening and who will listen to this particular virtual 3 for 3 pop-up fair. I just want to say thank you. Thank you all for being so open, taking the time to be with us this afternoon, and providing a wealth of information that I'm sure will be extremely helpful to our students and to our UNLV community and the NSHE community as well. So I just, once again, just want to say thank you so very, very much. That's it for today.
Great. And I did share the Fostering Scholars website there, and my contact information is all available there. So anybody that needs to reach out, there you'll know how to reach us.